Now, we've kind of touched on Andre. I want to take a quick second. Obviously, Murray's in the kind of news a little bit because he says he's going to play through the summer. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know if that's British summer. We don't know if he's going to try to make it through the Open. Talk me through kind of his personality pre and post match. We're talking about kind of dialing things back, right? Like letting your kind of stock game be effective on the other person, not overplaying. He's someone that even when you started with him was never guilty of overplaying any shot. So what were the adjustments that you had to make with him? I'm assuming they were different than with Andre.
It's funny, it's the first morning I got here. Let's say, so it was last Sunday, 4:15 in the morning in the gym. Who do I see? Andy Murray. And we get into the longest conversation about rackets and all of the technology. Oh my God, he's crazy about all this. With Andy, probably the biggest thing is that I analyzed right away was the type of game that he played. First, the beauty of it was that everybody told me, like, he'll never be top 10. He'll never be this. He's a pusher.
That's so stupid from anyone who actually knows tennis, though. The guy, he has such ball control. I mean, you have that kind of ball control. You can't teach that. I disregard that opinion, even back when I first saw him.
Yeah. So, but he at that point probably weighed $160.
Yeah.
And his biggest issue was physicality. He literally at 2-hour mark was toast. I mean, he didn't have, and the type of game that he played, you need a full tank. You can't be a counterpuncher unless you're fitter than a fiddle, unless you can stay out there and you can wear your opponent down. So I did think that was the most important thing. And then I felt like probably more than Andy shot, and it's probably the one shot he probably wishes was a little bit better, was the second serve. I felt like his second serve was a little bit attackable. And then the other shot that we talked about a lot, Andy is a three-letter guy. No matter what you tell him, he's going to say why. What's your research? What's your thought? I'm telling you, there wasn't one time I could tell you or I could tell Andre. Anytime I told Andy Murray something, it was why. How did you come to this? And a lot of times, I see it, I think it. I don't, disseminate like you do. And I spend 10 hours on the computer thinking about, and I don't have this dissertation. I just say it. I didn't understand why he would jump 8 feet inside the court and then bunt the return. So I say, I don't get the geometry that you're going to take this big risk and then not do something. Because then if you don't do something, now you're not in great position to where you can defend on the next ball. So we did move him way back, and then he did that big leap forward, which he told me, like, that's one thing that he changed, and he never changed after I changed that, because he would kind of be close and he way inside. So then he moved back, so at least he wasn't 9 feet inside the court, because it's like, you're that far inside the court, you either got to come to net or do something better.
Yeah,
but he was a unique guy talking about strategy with.
Yeah, he would. We got into a cadence a couple of years ago when he's the only guy I've ever seen that. This is a true story, producer Mike. We're texting back and forth, and again, you mentioned the rackets. He was on one about the rackets 2.5, 3 years ago, right? And he would text. He had me and Bob Bryan on a text, and he was like, "What do you think? More space?" And I'm like, I don't know. He rented out a court and kept the shot spot live and active, so that when he was using different rackets, it wasn't based on feelings like Brad's talking about. It was based on an entire readout, shot profile. He rented out a court with shot spot technology after he had lost in Cincinnati one year, and then sends us all the readouts. I'm like, bro, I don't know. Like, your math is great. I have no idea. I would have to see how the ball was coming off or feel it. Like, I don't know what this is.
Is this like sad? He told me at the LTA, he has a radar gun. He just play tested every single racket.
This stuff so much.
And he says that he, that all the different head rackets, some are more power. He couldn't get any more power on any racket, on any different types, looser, tighter. And I said, maybe it has something to do with your arm. Maybe you've got a little too much. But he's still searching.
I know.
For any smidge that can make him better. And that's the reason why he's probably still going, because in the back of his mind, that if he finds something, it will all of a sudden give him that pixie dust.
And he's going to, he's been holding out the whole time because he wants to make a quarter of a slam and feel those kind of emotions again. And I hope he has that moment. I hope he gets the send-off that he wants, because he's deserved it. And his curiosity is amazing. I'm sure it was probably annoying for you as a coach sometimes, but I respect someone who is so committed to process, right? That is a non-negotiable with someone's great, is respecting the process, not trying to shortchange the process. Some of us can go overboard sometimes, but it is a non-negotiable, especially in an individual sport. Something else I want to get to before we let you go is, for most of the tennis world, right? All of a sudden, we're scrolling on Twitter, and you and I text a little bit more, so I normally have a little bit more of an in view that I would never kind of talk about publicly. But to most of the tennis world, all of a sudden, we're scrolling through last summer, we see Washington, and everyone goes, "Oh shit, Brad's on court with Coco." Like, I'm assuming that didn't happen that morning. Walk us through the process of when you started kind of thinking about this, where your interest level was, if you were committed to getting back out on the road. Kind of walk us through what led to that moment where all of a sudden the rest of us are going, "Oh shit, look what happened."
A couple of years ago, unfortunately, it crushes me. ESPN, we lost this tournament, Miami, Canada, Cincy, year-end championship. So we lost a lot of the days that we did, and still bums me out that we're not following this match, and that's a whole nother story. So that kind of led me to, I have a lot more time, and to be honest with you, I have one coaching regret, that I've been in the final weekend as a coach numerous times at Wimbledon and never come away with winning that tournament. So I was thinking, you know what? Yeah, I was there with
my bad, bro.
I was 6 times as a coach in the semis and didn't get past, a couple of finals. I'm still, thinking about the 2004 final, 2 rain delays. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
The 5-all, 2 lead courts in the second set.
All right, I don't want to leave this interview depressed. Let's move on.
Okay. And I started thinking that it was probably time that I'd like to get back in the mix, but I wanted to get back in the mix with somebody that potentially could be in the final weekend. And somebody that was young enough that I could help get to that level. And during that tournament, I actually got, first early in the tournament that there was...
You mean Wimbledon last year?
Wimbledon 2023.
Okay.
There was a guy player that I got some interest from his agent that happened to text me. And then after Coco lost first round to Kenin, I happened to be in the green room talking to Mary Jo Fernandez, whose husband represents Coco. I started telling her,
teammate, she's on the roster there.
Yeah. So I started telling her the few things that I saw that could quickly change Coco's course of where she was going. So which led to Saturday morning when I was getting ready to go to the courts, I got a text from Alessandro, who is Coco's agent.
Would I take a
meeting? Yeah. Would I take a meeting with Coco and the family about some of the things that I saw? And I said, sure. So it took a meeting. We had that morning over at a house in the village that late that morning, and we spoke for about an hour. And Tony said he was looking in through the window, and he was like, "Man, see like a 62-year-old guy." And I'm seeing a couple of them looking on their phone. He didn't think it was going very well. So, and as it turned out, when the meeting was done, I said that my schedule was open for the summer of 2023, other than the qualies at the U.S. Open. So I had umpteen weeks to go. So literally 2 weeks goes by, I don't hear nothing. I actually had told Kim
that's not normally a good sign.
No, and that's exactly what I said. And then the day before, I got a call from the tournament in Washington. Would I like to do something, you know?
Wait. So unrelated to Coco, Washington had you come in and do like an appearance?
Come in and do a week for the tournament. I did clinics with Luke, and I did a bunch of players where I was taking them into the suites.
You're about to tell me this was all a coincidence?
So got to Washington the next day.
Yeah.
The next day, literally. So this was like Wednesday. I'm going to Washington Saturday.
Okay.
Get the call from Alessandro. He says, do you want to come down tomorrow to Atlanta? Coco's playing this exhibition in Atlanta. Do you want to do a 2-day trial? See how it goes. Or maybe she's going to go back to Delray and we could do 2 days, figure something out. I said, well, and I said, I think Coco's playing in Washington. I'm now going to Washington like Friday night. You want to do the 2-day trial there? And then he texted me back and he was like, sure. And I said, well, because I've already got a ticket. I've got the hotel. I've got things covered. So
one's very public and one isn't.
Yeah, that was probably, I didn't think about that. That was probably like an unforced error by me. But honestly, I was really just thinking about some of the things that I saw, just like you, how my life has come full circle, that like you're my age now and you were Coco's age, in 2003. And I saw a couple of little things that I felt like were going to make a huge difference. And the 2-day trials, we had 2 good days of practice, Saturday and Sunday, which led to like, okay, let's do the tournament. And I remember Mary Jo calling me Tuesday afternoon. And I'm staying at this place. Literally, it's called the Salamander Hotel. You've heard of this place?
I haven't, but I feel like I'm about to.
Wait, it's probably the only Ritz-Carlton I think that's ever changed to the Salamander Hotel in D.C. And
Wait,
I had a piece
Georgetown?
No, I don't know. It's over by all the government buildings.
Oh, okay.
I'm not in that part of the neighborhood of Washington ever before. That's a no-go for me. That's a complete no-go for me. And I had just written down on the piece of paper the date of the U.S. Open final.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because I just happened to look at it. I wrote down the day of it. And right when I did that, Mary Jo Fernandez called me. And she wanted to know how things were going. I said, I think things are going really well. She plays her first match tomorrow. And I think she's going to win the U.S. Open on September, on the date that I wrote down, September 9th. And then she got, you're getting so far ahead of yourself. Why are you thinking that? Don't say that. And I probably shouldn't have, but it was just, I literally just wrote it down. I just wanted to see what it looked like on the piece of paper, that date. And, sometimes you can hope, but it's like sometimes you can catch lightning in a bottle. Like you had a great summer of 2003. And I felt like if you'd asked me at Indianapolis if it was going to happen, I kind of felt like it was happening. I didn't want to jump out of that damn plane that you made me jump out of after Cincinnati. But I felt like a lot of the things that happened to her was very eerily similar to you. It wasn't about making a big change in something. It was about how to manage your game and to maximize the things that you did better.
Well, listen, I couldn't have been happier with your successes. I got to tell you, one of my favorite moments of last year was, we had been talking and I text and you'll be calling a match and I'm just kind of bullshitting and I'm nerding out and, what do you think here? What do you think there? And it's become really like a really fun cadence but between us. But watching Coco's run and now all of a sudden everyone likes Coco. She just handles herself great. So I generally like Coco. And then all of a sudden you start working with her and I feel like I have more of a vested interest just because I want to see the changes. I want to see how your mind kind of translates to her game. And then all of a sudden you start ripping off wins again. I'm going, here it goes. We got the fucking downhill snowball going again. I know where this leads. I know where it's going. And so fast forward, she wins the US Open. And I'm like, I was like literally emotional. I haven't been that emotional watching a tennis match in a very long time. And then I text you congrats. And I remember one of my favorite kind of 45-minute moments was you said, "Hey, you know what? This is just crazy. I'm kind of spinning. I'm really happy. We're gonna do, the party celebration here." He goes, "Come, early. Come before everyone gets here, and let's just have a couple of drinks." And even that moment, and kind of thinking through it, and then kind of rolling back the clock, and then all of a sudden, your daughter walks in. We talk about babysitting her when I'm 3 years old, and now she's like I mean, it was just a nice. And I got to sit back, against a wall. I didn't know Coco well at that point and just to sit back and kind of watch it from a 30,000-foot view, I felt like I was looking backwards a little bit, except you two have a lot more runway, hopefully. I think you were the perfect guy for that job at that moment. As you're looking forward, what are you currently kind of working on, and where do you think the start of the year has been for Coco?
Well, it's interesting when you're in that moment, like when I was hurt, you don't really understand what's going on because you're so in the moment until it's over. This year, she was just like, I'm going to say
she was
3
close.
minutes, 3 minutes from winning the Aussie Open, in my opinion. 6-5, 30 love in that first set after a slow start. As she won that first set, I think she wins 6-2. Zabalenka picked up her game dramatically, and then she had another window at 3-4, love 30 in a second. So sometimes in matches, that's all it is a small window. And then we didn't have a great trip over in Doha, Dubai. I think maybe she rushed to playing there. They have these two big tournaments out of nowhere. But I think more importantly, at any age, and especially when you're young, it's understanding about what the goals are to get better, because it's too easy to say, I want to win X, Y, and Z, because everybody does. But there's parts of her game that she definitely needs to work with. I've never got so many texts in my life once I started coaching her that instantly everything is about fix your forehand, fix your grip, fix your forehand. You have to, and it's like, I think sometimes people think, and even club players think, it's so easy to just fix something like that. And my first thought is, I don't know what you're like. I said, what happens if you fix it and it doesn't get better? What happens if you make a change and it doesn't get better? And then when you change a grip, you have to completely change an arc of a swing. What does that do to the arm? So there's more factors in making a change, and probably more than anything, mentally, it's not as easy as people think, because they think you're a pro. It's like, boom, you can do that. Not everybody's like Rafa that can make changes like all the time. Andre was another one that liked to tinker all the time, but not all players are like that. Were you like that? Could you make changes easy?
I could try them. I wasn't against it, and I could tell you pretty quickly whether it was going to work or whether it wasn't. I wasn't scared to try anything. I mean, I felt like my entire career I was kind of trying to problem solve for these otherworldly talents, and so I was desperate at times. I would fucking try anything to try to get a different result. But as you're talking through that, it's weird because it almost draws a direct line to where we started this conversation, where you become so technically obsessed, and not everything is about swing, especially, and this is from where I sit, and I kind of agree with you, adjustments, not changes, right? If Coco fixes or changes a grip, she relies on her legs. Like her kind of plan B is set. Very similar to Rafa, where like, I might not be playing well, but I can serve and I can play D, and I'm going to make, even, if I'm not playing great, your life's going to be miserable for 2 hours, even if you beat me, right? I'm going to be a massive pain in the ass. So all of a sudden, she changes her grip. That changes the cadence of steps into the ball. That changes ball flight when she's on the run. That changes every single thing. Maybe court positioning is different. It's not just one fix. There's a waterfall effect off of any major change that you make. And is that trade-off worth that waterfall effect? Maybe an adjustment here and there. Like we worked on a serve, and it was like a couple simple little things. It wasn't heaven and earth, and she seemed to get it pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, listen, it changes 10 other things. You change a grip, that changes. Okay, maybe used to kind of play it offline, and now all of a sudden this grip dictates that I pull it this way. It changes kind of all of those instinctive reps that you've built up over the course of 20 years. It's more than just a grip in my mind.
You know, if you ask like a really good 14-year-old, like a top junior, if you win 6'4", 7'5", 6'4", 6'4", they think you have to win way more points. It's amazing that like in a 6'4" match,
it's 1 percentage point or 2,
yeah. And so, and it's a lot of times it's the key points. Some players, and at some point you do need to make a change when you're stuck or you're going backwards. And in theory, if you don't improve a little bit, Andy, you are going backwards because there's new 17, 18-year-olds. But sometimes you can force change. And change, you know, can be good. Just like sometimes the coach can be lucky. It's not what he said. It just happened to be a new voice, happened to be at the right place in the right time. You know, so there is a little bit of luck factor, but I'm totally honest in that there's no way I can take a 500 player and take him to 5 in the world. You might do the greatest coaching job ever and take a 500 player that has a max of 350 and take him to 150. But you're not going to be recognized for doing that big because you're not. You're going to be recognized for taking somebody that, you know, taking him that. But honest to God, whether or not it's Andre or anybody, if you're coaching them, they have to have these God-given skills that help them. Otherwise, I'd just give you a magic pill.